for your divine presence and direction as we meet here tonight for the business of Person County and its citizens. In your holy name we pray. Amen.
If you would stand with me and salute the flag. Recite with me the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
First on our agenda is discussion and adjustment or approval of the agenda as presented.
Chairman Powell, make a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
Motion on the floor for approval. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? None. Motion carried. First on our agenda, number one is recognition. We have Duke Energy Foundation Grant Award to Person County. Tanya Evans, welcome.
Good evening. I am so pleased to be here today with my emergency management partners here to present a Duke Energy grant for resilience and emergency response. We're proud of our history of working together with our emergency management partners throughout the state. And in recognition of that, late last year, we announced a grant program wherein we awarded $750,000 across 24 organizations across the state to support their emergency management efforts. And I am so pleased to be able to present this grant today. We want to celebrate that today to Person County. We are awarding a $50,000 grant to Person County Emergency Management, and I would love for Tom to be able to share a little bit more information about that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Commissioners.
Good evening.
The Department of Emergency Services, through the Office of Emergency Management, is responsible for the response and mitigation of any hazardous material emergencies, to include but not limited to spills, accidents, illegal dumping, and other releases or threatened releases of hazardous materials requiring control that are a threat or potential threat to public safety. The Office of Emergency Management is responsible for collaborating with and supporting all public safety agencies in the county to prepare, prevent, and respond to large-scale incidents. The impetus for this project was based on two events, one actual and one exercise. The actual event was a large multi-fuel leak at a gas station facility in Roxborough that happened in the fall of 2022. Multiple public safety agencies responded to the incident in an attempt to control the fuel from getting into the sewer drainage system in the nearby tributary. The after-action report from that incident identified a need for a more consolidated response to large-scale incidents of these types where product release has occurred. Additionally, an exercise that was conducted in November of 2021 at Hyco Lake with a fictional recreational vehicle leaking 80 gallons of gasoline into the lake also identified a similar need. The award from Duke Energy Foundation will be used for the purchase of an incident support vehicle that can be used to support all public safety agencies in the county. The vehicle can be used to support incident command and control functions for large-scale incidents. It will also be equipped to support basic hazardous material control supplies, mitigation supplies, provider safety monitoring equipment, hazard identification equipment, and plume modeling capability. These capabilities will allow OEM to assist first responders with initial scene operations and, if needed, support regional response teams when they arrive on scene. This is a collaborative project spearheaded by the Department of Emergency Services, but being done with tremendous support from the Person County Fire Marshal's Office, Roxborough Person County Rescue Squad, and Roxborough Fire Department. These entities will help in the design and equipping of the vehicle and have agreed to help respond to the vehicle if requested. We're very grateful to Duke Energy Foundation for their financial support of this project and also for the great working relationship that we share from an emergency preparedness and prevention perspective. This relationship benefits all the citizens and visitors of Person County. So if you don't mind, I'd like to have Chief Lathan and Fire Marshal Morris and Chief Terrain to come up as well.
You will allow us us a photo opportunity, we would love
Sure.
that.
You come bearing gifts, we'll take your picture anytime, so we'll.
One, two, three.
Again, we really do appreciate the opportunity to present this to you today. And again, I just express my deep appreciation for the working relationship we have with the county and with our emergency service partners.
Thank you so much. As you say, continued relationship, always supportive of Person County and its citizens, and we certainly appreciate it. Be used wisely.
Thank you.
Item number 2 on our agenda is we need a motion to open a public hearing, noted in your packet there's tonight. Yeah, we'll turn this over to Attorney Ellis Hankins.
Mr. Chairman, did you get that motion? And
Motion.
Did not.
Mr. Chairman, I make the motion. Go into public hearing.
Motion to go into public hearing. We have a second. Some gentlemen need a second. Any discussion, I mean? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, none, motion carried. I'm sorry, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to give you the usual lawyer talk on the record at the beginning of this special use permit public hearing. I would point out for the record that the clerk published the notice of public hearing as required by law. I want to point out, as always, that this is not the usual up or down legislative rezoning. This is a special use permit application, and the Person County ordinance and the state law says that this is called a quasi-judicial hearing. That just simply means that anyone and everyone who wishes to speak can do that. They can testify after being sworn in as witnesses. And the board is required by the ordinance and the state law to hear all the evidence, including live testimony this evening. All the documents are available to you, the application and other information, including the information and documents that will be submitted by the witnesses probably. And the board is required to make your decision based on and only on that evidence in the record. And you have before you in the agenda, in your agenda package, an agenda abstract from your planning director who is standing at the podium. And he will talk with you, I am sure, about the 4 criteria. And at the end of this proceeding, you will need to take those 4 criteria into consideration and make a decision about whether the evidence that has been offered and is part of the record allows you to make a finding that each of those criteria have been satisfied. And then if the board sees, well, one way or the other, however the board votes at the end of the proceeding, the staff then will work on a written order to reflect the action of the board and then present that written order to the board for approval as the law requires. So that is the process. I am happy to answer questions. Thank you.
We get them up for the oath before, or, yeah,
They
call them.
Yes, if it pleases the board, I would like to ask all individuals, Mr. Barry Allen, Ms. P.J. Gentry, Ms. Carol Pastor, Ms. Jana Cosner, Mr. Tom Brown, Mr. Al Pastor, Mr. John Hill, as well as Mr. Chris Bowley, to be sworn in at this time. If you'll come forward and put your name, put your hand on one of the Bibles provided up front, and our chairman will conduct the oath of sworn testimony with you all. And Mr. Andy Oakley, I understand, and I just need you to sign one of these.
Andy as well?
Yes, and Andy will join you. Just 1 second, please.
One more coming. There we go. Here.
9 total.
Okay, everyone ready? And repeat after me. I, and state your name, do solemnly swear or affirm that I will tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. As testimony offered in the public hearing for petition SUP 0123, a request by Person County government, property owner of plus or minus 281.5 acres, located at tax map and parcel number A76 15 to approve special use permit SUP 0123 in an R residential zoning district for a passive recreational park use. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, one more comment from the attorney before the first witness testifies. I should have said this. You all know this property that is the subject of this special use permit, in fact, is owned by Person County. But the board still has a duty, as you all know, to be impartial, to do everything I said in my previous comments and consider this matter without bias, just as you would any other special use permit application for any other property. Thank you.
Okay, at this time, we recognize Chris Bowley to introduce the project to us, please.
Thank you, Chairman and Commissioners. Chris Bowley, Planning and Zoning Director. I put a PowerPoint presentation up there for you as well to sort of follow along that was in your packets. As you mentioned earlier, this is SUP 0123 Special Use Permit Application. And do I admit, oh, here we are. Thank you. Through the slides. So you can see, as you aforementioned, it's a 281.5 acre tract located in the southeast portion of Person County. It was platted in 1976 and acquired by the county in 1977. It was held for future conservation and passive recreational use. This application is required to use the site as a passive recreational park based on a zoning district. It provides limited access, also handicapped person access, and recreational opportunities for the entire community. There is the final plat that was approved in 1976, just for tract A7651 tax map number. This includes the Tilley property access, which the county acquired to get to what we'll call the parent tract or subject property. You can see both together off of Moores Mill Road. This is the future land use map, which is approved in the 2021 Joint Comprehensive Plan between City of Roxborough and Person County, showing a rural land use category. And this is the zoning district of residential and the official zoning map for Person County, which shows consistency and compatibility with the zoning district and the land use designation, which is important in North Carolina law. And this is the site plan, just cover page, given general orientation. But the topography, which is very difficult, I know from the audience to see it, it's a 1 foot contour interval, so that means that in areas it looks dark, in area it looks white. There's a lot of relief and topography on the site. And this shows the site plan from a distance, but the Parks Director, Mr. John Hill, will go into detail about that a little later. And these are the findings of fact, which I'll read to you for the record, and then a potential motion. So let me go back to the findings of fact and some salient points. The property next door, the Tilley Tract, is located at 5845 Moores Mill Road, has a rural land use category or residential zoning designation, access through the Tilley property. If the site was built under the current zoning designation of 281 acres with residential land use designation, yields 562 homes. That's on the gross, and that means that you just apply the density across the entire parent tract. On the net, which is what would really be developed when you less out roads, stormwater areas, amenities, so forth, you would end up with about 422 homes. With the rural category, that has a 1 unit per acre limitation that assumes no rezoning on the property, and that would have 281 homes on the gross. On the net would be 211 homes, you lose 70 units. When you look at the trip generation externally that would be generated from a project such as a 211 unit property, and you're looking at 0.99 external AADG trips for a single-family home, which is the equivalent of 211 new trips onto Moores Mill Road, whereas a park generates 0.11 trips per acre, which is 31 additional new trips onto Moores Mill Road. The low-impact use is a passive recreational park, meaning it's not active, meaning it doesn't have large playgrounds, it's respectful of the existing natural land in situ. It doesn't clear or grade the property. It doesn't add, curbing, gutters, a lot of paved parking areas, et cetera. It also makes the site accessible to the entire community, used by hikers, bird watchers, environmental groups, trail runners, all-inclusive handicap residents with limited recreational opportunities, et cetera. It proposes a minimal impact of land and a maximum environmental preservation. Going over to the findings of fact, which are in the staff report, which I provided, which is on page 3 of 3, which is the factors that you need to consider as the commission in making a decision whether to approve this SUP application per our code. That the use will not materially endanger the public health or safety if it were located where proposed and developed according to the plan as submitted and approved, and that plan would be the site plan. A passive park, as proposed, will not materially endanger the public health or safety, but will enhance it through recreational opportunities as previously mentioned. That the use meets all the required conditions and specifications. The passive park meets the conditions and specifications in the site plan design, with emphasis on enjoying nature. That the use will not substantially injure the value of adjoining or abutting property, or that the use is a public necessity. As a passive park, land values of the subject property and adjoining property shall be enhanced and not be injured as a public investment for community use. I base that testimony on having developed several parks over my career. That the location and character of the use, if developed according to the plan as submitted and approved, will be in harmony with the area in which it is to be located and generally in conformance with the comprehensive plan. As a passive park, the character of the use will be in harmony with the area by remaining passive and in preservation overall. So the next slide that I put for you, staff therefore recommends that SUP 0123 be supported based on the findings of fact listed above, and that the special use permit application be approved by the commission. See if I can change that. There you go. So, we did place 2 conditions of approval, and I'll read them to you. The applicant obtains all required permits from County Environmental Health Department, Planning and Zoning Department, and Inspections Department. And that the applicant obtains required permits from the North Carolina Department of Environmental Quality and any other agency to achieve construction, operation, and maintenance of the subject property. So with that, I put a potential motion in the PowerPoint presentation for you, which is behind you there, or in your packet, which basically has staff recommendation of approval. I'm here to answer any questions.
Commissioner, questions? Anyone? Maybe there's only one, and I don't know how this works in here, but at one point, we did talk about a graveyard on that property. Do you remember that? That's all clear,
John can likely comment on that.
just so we're clear, I mean.
Yeah, I mean, it will be considered.
John, please address that during your testimony.
All right, we'll do that. Any questions, Mr. Bowley? None? Okay, now do we want to hear the witnesses?
Thank you all very much.
I'm sorry.
Thank you, Chris, appreciate
I
it.
did say that.
Witnesses. All right, at this time, we will call the witnesses. We will call them in favor of this special use permit. The first one is Mr. Barry Allen of Moores Mill Road, Ridgemont.
She said my name, I'm Barry Allen. I affirm that.
Good afternoon.
I have prepared very brief remarks, but they're supplemented with written testimony, which the clerk has, enough for each of you. I strongly support the development of a park on the county farm property. I do not fully support the special use permit application as written. For full disclosure, I met with Director John Hill at his invitation last Wednesday and was shown the preliminary site plan for the park. The application was not yet available. My comments pertain to what is in the application, do not pertain to what is in the application, but to what is not in it. Important findings of fact are missing from each of the 4 categories enumerated in the county planning ordinance. Here I give you facts for each category. Category 1, health and safety. Drinking water protection and water quality are not mentioned or discussed in the application, but the rationale for developing the park is to comply with the IAIA by reducing nutrient influx into Falls Lake. Traffic impacts of the park on Moores Mill Road are not discussed, but this was an important concern of citizens at the public meetings. Measures for assuring safety and security or providing utilities are not mentioned. The easement for a future quarry access road, which could cut the park in 2, is not shown on the site plan as is required by the planning ordinance. Category 2 meets all requirements. A deed restriction or protective covenant to run with the land will be required by the planning ordinance as a condition for a stormwater permit. Even better, a commitment to seek a conservation easement would meet this requirement. And I provide information in the supplementary material about that. The cemetery on the county property must be included in the plan to comply with North Carolina statutes. And I've given you the statutes. Category 3, effects on adjoining or abutting property. We have been told that nighttime lighting and noisy activities will not be allowed, but this should be confirmed in the application. At the 17 May 2021 Commissioners meeting, staff proposed that watercraft would launch from the park. This would make property owners along the river unwitting abutters to activities originating in the park. Although we have been told that this will not happen, that should be stated in the application. Fences and a gate are not shown or described in the application, though they have been promised. Category 4, harmony and conformity. More than 18 months ago, a group of property owners on the Flat River requested that staff collaborate with us to assure that the park will be developed in harmony with the environment and with the use and enjoyment of our properties, while assuring that the recreational needs of county citizens and visitors are met. This collaboration is needed and should be formalized. In conclusion, I hope that these comments will help you in your deliberations. In written remarks I have provided to Ms. Reeves to distribute to you, each fact is accompanied by actions in support of the park. These actions are not part of my oral testimony, since they are technically evidence, not facts. I am happy to answer questions and provide more information. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you.
All right, next we will hear from Ms. P.J. Gentry of Hurdle Mills.
Good evening,
Good
Commissioners.
evening.
Happy New Year to everyone. Mr. Allen has some very good points, which I think can probably be, I'm not an expert here, but probably can be added to the determination of the final outcome. The quantities of the detail that may perhaps are missing from the site plan.
In answer to your question, and to Mr. Allen, the board can impose any conditions as
Conditions
part
and finding
of the
facts.
special use permit if the board votes to approve a special use permit, any conditions that the board sees fit to impose.
So I think he's got some good points that are probably missing, so that's very helpful. I just wanted to speak in support of the county farm. This is an asset that has been on the county books for many, many years, 30-plus years, and it's what I call a non-performing asset. It's not doing anything for us. It's not costing us money, but it's not generating money either. And it was originally, accessed by the county, acquired by the county to protect water, protect resources. So unfortunately, the board that back in the day, purchased the land didn't also purchase access. So there's been no monitoring, no access without permission of surrounding landowners for us to even get to it. I spent hours with staff walking the property, and it's unmonitored, it's unsafe. There's all kinds of activities going on back there that we don't know about. And the county is on the hook for that ultimately. So being able to convert this asset into something usable that will be monitored by the county, by staff, is a very good thing for the health and safety of the area and the citizens that are around it. So I'm very much in support of it. I'm also very happy that doing so with an asset that we don't have to go out and purchase an asset to meet the requirements of 5 years from the Division of Water Quality of over $500,000 the county would have to pay for the stormwater mitigation if we didn't have this land. So I think this is just a real plus for Person County that we don't have to go out and acquire something else to do this. It doesn't require the purchase of the land. It meets the stormwater regulations. It provides mountain biking trails, nature conservation. It does prepare and protect the riparian buffers, the waterways. It keeps those protected. We do provide fencing, although apparently it's not clear enough on the site plan, but like you said, that can be added. And I think that I mentioned this 3-4 weeks ago last year, that naming the park is kind of important for some of the people that live in the area, and I had proposed a Burton Tilley Park naming. Honoring the legacy of the families that have settled and worked that land for generations. I think it would be a good thing for the county to do. And I'm hoping that when you get all the findings and facts in front of you, you make certain conditions on to make sure that we can move forward and get this asset working for the county in a positive way. Thank you so much, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Next, we'll ask Ms. Carol Pastor of Ridgemont to come forward.
Evening.
I have questions. I'm not sure whether I'm for or against the park. One of my questions is, the stormwater fees will fund the development of the park. What fees will be imposed to maintain the park? Will there be an additional tax burden on the county residents? Am I not to expect an answer on that?
Ma'am, I would suggest that outside this hearing, you might want to contact county staff to discuss those matters. There really cannot be a back and forth discussion here.
Thank you. Thank you. I wasn't sure. This came with my tax information, so that was my question. An additional concern I have, there will be trails, will there be restrooms, and who will maintain that? So, thank you.
Thank you.
And next, we'll hear from Ms. Jana Kosner of Roxborough.
I'm Jana Kisner, and I'm here representing the Person County Friends of the Park. And the Friends of the Park are eager to begin our volunteer work to prepare the trails and to promote and support the opening of this new county farm park as soon as possible. It's been a long time coming since it was originally approved here in 2021, and Friends of the Park hopes that this board will approve the remaining items needed to clear the path for this project to move forward. And I want to thank you so far for your support of this new park to this point. And it will be such an asset, as other people have already pointed out tonight in their other remarks. 2023 has been officially designated the North Carolina Year of the Trail, with the goal of boosting awareness of trails as well as trail use across the state of North Carolina. Officials chose the year 2023 because it will be the 50th anniversary of the 1973 North Carolina Trail System Act. And this would be a great year to get this project completed and open to the public and to promote and celebrate that statewide in momentum of the North Carolina Year of the Trail. And so I urge your approval of it, and I agree with all the other remarks that have been made in support of the assets of this park. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, at this time, we will move to those in opposition to the special use permit, starting with Mr. Tom Brown of Ridgemont.
Good evening, appreciate you having this hearing. I've been to a couple of previous meetings about this planned park, and I have a couple questions. I'm a financial professional, so my questions are basically on the finances for this operation. As the woman just mentioned, she had some financial concerns, and I have actually spoken with a number of people on the board and others involved asking these questions, and I have yet to get an answer. Something such as, how's it going to be funded? What's the annual cost? Will taxes increase? That's obviously a concern just as a taxpayer in general. Those that I've asked, including John and some other members, Ms. Gentry, they just didn't know. I understand the money's been earmarked to build this park, and that's fine. 3-5 years from now, someone's going to have to pay for the upkeep. And if that's the taxpayers, then that's something that needs to be considered. But like I said, I've asked a number of people in this room, and no one has any answers yet. Ms. Gentry made a nice statement. She said currently, and I quote her, she just said this, "It doesn't cost us anything right now." That's about to change. It's going to cost a lot of money to upkeep that park. I live across from the Flat River. I've yet to see anybody out there. I've been out there 8 years. I've never seen anybody on that property. It's never caused any damage. What I do see is, yes, there is a lot of wildlife. Am I opposed to the park in general? Not really. My concern is the financial aspect. And that's something I think we really need to consider, that if we have all this extra money laying around that's going to maintain this park, is there a better use for it? And one thing that was mentioned was the traffic coming in and out of the park. The rate of speed on that road outside that park is in excess of 50 miles an hour, and it's on a tight corner. There's already been a number of accidents in this past year. How many more will there be because of it? That has not been addressed at all, any of the traffic concerns. And one final thing I would just ask is that if this was next to your house, would you want to have it put in? Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
And now we'll hear from Mr. Al Pastor. of Richmond.
Good evening, Al Pastor. We live not on the river, but really, really, really close. We're one property away. My concern is twofold, and that is watercraft and people pulling over on, I believe you call it the Greenway, on either side of the river. Is there anything to prevent them from having campfires and that sort of thing? I don't expect an answer from you. I'm just bringing this up. The other thing is water safety. Has provision been made for people falling over? It's a very rocky area, hitting rocks, floating down the river. Has there been something put together for emergency services that can get to the river? Other than that, I think the park is a great idea. I'm concerned with NIMBY, it's real close. And are people going to be coming up the river? Are people going to be able to hunt along the river in canoes that come from the park? So those are my concerns. I hope I can get some information somewhere along the way. Thank you.
Thank you.
Chairman, that concludes the speakers that signed up to speak and offer testimony during this public hearing.
Thank you, Madam Clerk.
Mr. Chairman, I thought there were going to be other witnesses from staff and consultants, correct? Okay. And is now the time for that? Okay.
If that's the desire of the board and the witnesses, yes.
Move right ahead.
Good evening.
Evening.
So I'm going to talk on a number of different things, and I guess a number of different things that I heard tonight. I've sort of taken some notes on what I've heard with some concerns. I want to first and foremost say that a site plan, what you see is if you read the side of the site plan, that's a preliminary plan to make sure to get a special use permit. That's not a construction document. So when we move in further into this process, our engineering firm will actually devise us a construction document so that we can actually do things like go out to bids and show specifics of what is going to be detailed into that site. Having said that, we still have to have a number of public meetings. Our engineering firm, architect firm, we do have a contract for them to conduct a couple more public meetings so that we can make sure that we put all of the information that we gather from the public into the design and the complete construction document that we have. So just to let you know, so as we're talking about this application, you're probably seeing some things in the application that are required, but if it's not in the application, it's not required. For example, the fencing. The fencing is another contractual obligation that we have as in the closing. So there are things that are contractually obligated in the closing, and there are some things that are obligated in the actual site plan.
Mr. Hill, since you mentioned that, that was going to be one of my questions to ask you to respond to. So let me ask you to go into a little more detail about what you just said. It is my recollection that the county entered into an agreement with the abutting property owner, Mr. Tilley. And under that agreement, Mr. Tilley conveyed to the county the access easement across his property to this county-owned property. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And in that agreement, were there some conditions?
There were, and some of the conditions, and one of the conditions was, I don't have that in front of me, but one of the conditions was fencing. There was barriers, signage, ways to keep people out of the riparian buffer, so on and so forth. I think there was a stack rail fence that was on the perimeter of the park.
And is that the entire perimeter of the park?
That's not the water section of the park where we actually would be doing it more environmental harm, putting a fence up near the the river than just leaving it natural and using the money that we're gonna get for the repair and buffer to take care of that project. But there are obligations that we have contractually from the purchase that are not in, and are not required to be in the special use permit application. So, just the.
But that is a binding, all of those conditions in that agreement are binding contractual obligations on the county, correct?
Correct. And there are also, based on this program, which is a stormwater program, we are obligated to do other things that are not specifically in this application as well. For example, the trail system is a, let's use this for an example. The trail system is an educational trail system. And we didn't specifically put on the site plan that this particular overlook is educational or whatever. It's just, in the site plan, it's just an overlook or a shelter. If we were to get specific in it, we haven't studied the ecosystem in there long enough to know what exactly we're educating people on, if that makes any sense. So that's why that's why it's not a construction document. It is preliminary. So I've got a few notes here that I also want to talk about, a few things that from the facts and finding. Let me just go down the line here. Before I get started, also, I do have a letter that I'd like to, or an email correspondence from Michelle Wells, who is the Executive Director of the North Carolina Recreation and Parks Association. I don't know if she would be considered an expert, but I would think, being the executive of this association, she knows what she's talking about. So I'd like to give this to Brenda, who takes this evidence.
That is permissible. I wonder if you'd like to just, without reading the entire message, kind of give the gist of it for the record.
So basically, she touches on the what parks in general do for communities, and a lot of that touches on the 4 facts of findings. So, for example, parks and green spaces enhance the well-being of the residents, promoting physical activity, mental health, and of course their physical health. And that touches on number 1. Also touching on number 1, I know crime was a big concern. Everybody's talking about crime, and we don't want parks to bring crime into our backyard, so on and so forth. And I don't blame them. I don't want it either. But she also speaks on that, how there's numbers of studies out there right now, and I have 3 studies for you to submit as evidence. One from the Indy Weekly, one from the National Parks Association, and then one from NC State University on how creating green spaces and green spaces in parks and communities reduces the amount of crime that you're going to have in that particular community. And it gives specific reasons why it reduces the crime. And the main reason why is because you have good people using parks and are going to tell on the bad people, long and short. So she speaks on that particular point. She also mentions in here where we're talking about fact and finding number 2, where it number 3, where it talks about hurting the property values of adjoining properties. And of course, I've got 3 or 4 studies in here that I want to submit as evidence that show that building a park and green space near communities or near a house actually increases the value of your property and enhances the marketability of your property if you were wanting to sell it. So I'm going to leave this letter with you. Those are some of the things that she touches on. Not to mention the other stuff like how it helps your entire community and how it helps the communities around you with clean air, clean water. This is a stormwater nutrient load project. This is all what this project's all about. So this is, she talks about that. I also have a letter here from one of our actual one of our board members, Recreation Advisory Board members, Stephen Vaughn, who is also a member of the Friends of the Parks, but he's talking specifically as a police officer in this particular, and he is detailing how where he works in Durham, parks have actually helped, prevent crime in some circumstances. I'm gonna leave this for evidence, but the idea behind that is, just like all of your other parks in Person County, you have good people using your parks. Typically, bad people don't wanna hang out where good people are, because they get told on, or they call John Hill, or the law enforcement, or so on and so forth. We already, since we've started this project, we have already had some crime reduction. So when we first assessed this particular property, the group that was with me, I pointed out every one of the things that were taking place on the property illegally. That would be including, hey, I love to hunt, but you gotta hunt on your own property, or you gotta hunt on property that you're allowed to hunt on. We pointed out illegal hunting blinds. We pointed out alcohol, being used, and maybe possibly other substances on that particular property. Since then, General Services has had a conversation with wildlife, posted the property to make sure that the hunting blinds have been taken away from there. And then also, my staff has been communicating with the Wildlife Resource Commission to make sure that before we do any preliminary work, that they got on the property to survey the property to make sure that that's not happening. So that in itself, we've already started pushing out people that weren't doing what they were supposed to have been doing. Let's see here. I also want to touch on the emergency. Gentleman had a question about the emergency action plan. Of course, we are in talks with Timberlake Fire Department. We will be having many conversations with the Sheriff's Department, Highway Patrol, DOT, working on an actual protocol for emergencies. And as a matter of fact, Jason, with the chief of the Timberlake Fire Department, is ready to go with a plan. We do plan on having some type of hub or something on the inside of this park, so that they have actually equipment sitting in there, that it'll be ready for an emergency whenever they need. But of course, that will be in the construction document. A discussion about the traffic. I know the traffic was a very hot topic, because everybody's talking about how traffic-y, how loaded up that road is, during the day, every afternoon. I lived in Timberlake for 18 years. I know that road as well. And I'm gonna let the engineer talk a little bit further on that particular thing. I've actually had a conversation just recently with DOT. We are already starting to talk about the process of how, once there is a park, if there is a park, that we can put processes in place to help slow down the traffic. I did get a comment from a rep in DOT, said that there's a difference. We had a conversation. There was a difference between concentrated traffic and intermittent traffic. So, for example, drive time is concentrated traffic at 8 o'clock in the morning, 6 o'clock in the morning, or whenever you're going to work, and then of course 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock when you're coming back. That's concentrated. But park use, when you have a park that is passive, you're not going to have a concentrated group showing up there all at one time. For example, a concentrated use would be the sportsplex at 6 o'clock. That's a concentrated use. You're going to get 500, Jason knows, you're going to get 500 people showing up at 6 o'clock to make that game. When you go mountain biking and hiking, you're only got 1 or 2 people in your car, so you probably only have a car, or you may have a friend following you in another car. So your load is very light. You're not making that much effect on the traffic volume. The other concern that we heard in the public, not tonight, but also in the public meetings that we have talked about addressing, was the biggest concern was not the load from what our concerns we're hearing, the biggest concern of Moore's Mill was the speed. So right now, Parks and Recreation doesn't have a park. So we have nobody in that community right now advocating with DOT or law enforcement or whatever to talk about how to alleviate that issue, that speed issue. Now, when Parks and Recreation does finally have a park, if they have a park, then that's when we have deeper conversations with law enforcement, with DOT, to put protocol in place, signage, traffic stops, so on and so forth, to take care of that speed issue. It's not a volume issue, it's a speed issue. And the comment was made during one of my DOT conversations that, if you have a park user, if you have a speed issue on a road and then you have a park entrance that you're getting ready to enhance or getting ready to put signage up for that park entrance, well, typically the person coming to the park is not going 65 miles an hour. They're the ones who are getting ready to stop. So of course, they're actually going to help the situation by slowing traffic up on that particular road. And that was, that's not a scientific thing, that's just me having a conversation with DOT. Let's see where I'm at now. Biggest concerns, intermittent traffic. And then of course, we talked about, this plan is also, we have to think about the facts of finding, the public health thing. It's in your master plan, it's in your comprehensive master plan for the county, it's also in your comprehensive master plan for the health department. That we do need more opportunity for exercise, health and wellness and recreation. This is a big opportunity, and of course, I haven't met a situation yet where putting a park or a health or wellness amenity in a community has hindered the safety of that particular community. And if you can tell me one in Person County where it has hindered the safety, then, and I've been here a long time, I haven't seen it yet. So all it does is enhances the overall health. Does anybody have any questions for me at this time?
John, can you address if there's going to be any outdoor lighting at the park?
There's not going to be an outdoor lighting. So what we've talked about, we don't want, this is a passive park. So it's just like it would be just like a state park or a national park. When your gate closes, we want you to get the hint. You got to be out. And the signage will say, you have to be out. It's going to be a sunrise to sundown park. In my experiences with lighting for park areas, the more lighting you have in specific types of parks. Passive parks, lighting is, when you have lighting, you have more crime. Because you have a hangout now. Because this thing is, it's down the road, Moore's Mill. When you have a lighting in a urban or inner city park, for example, the Huck-Sansbury, you're reducing crime. If that makes any sense. And it's we go by the standard of talking to other parks professionals. Criminals don't want to cross a gate and go a mile in to a dense wooded area that they cannot see in by foot. And when the gate's closed and the lights are off, of course, they're going to get the picture. Another part of that too is also, we still have to have a conversation with wildlife and also the sheriff's department. Lighting situation at the front gate is all going to depend on what they want as well. So if they say, hey, look, we're hearing that there's problems down here, can you put us a light, so on and so forth, so when we pull up it comes on, or when somebody else pulls up it might be a motion light. That's something that we want to communicate with wildlife about. The sheriff's department about. At this time, no.
And with this being a passive park, will any permits be permitted for any concentrated events at the park that will conflict with the harmony of the community or traffic flow?
community events like, if there is a community event, it would be Parks and Recreation doing the event. And that would be something like, and that would be very periodic. That would be like at Mayo Park, we throw 5K trail races, you know, every now and then. Or the school, for example, the RCS or the high school may want to do a cross-country event on there. That would be the only types of events. But we don't, at this time, we don't have a rental agreement, and we don't have a special use, a permit agreement or contract that the public can come in and actually rent. But at this time, we don't, that's not in our plans.
And that won't be the intent of the park,
That's not the intent of the park. It's a passive park.
John, a couple things that you touched on. One thing in particular I like is that by us posting that property, it does prevent illegal hunting. And I would think that gives the Game Warden Wildlife Resource officers, it gives them the ability to go in and enforce that posting. And the other thing that was mentioned, someone mentioned water safety. My understanding, we're not going to be allowing, of course you can't control if there's no fence there, but there is no allowing any access to the river from that property as far as your trails and things of that nature. And then I think the water safety was mentioned, you know, someone, you know, you're not going to allow someone to take their canoes from on that property and carry it down to the river. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Yes.
At this time, you can see it during on the site plan, is we have a 50-foot repair and buffer, and that's one of the number one projects that we are trying to accomplish with the stormwater program under the UNRBA. We've actually increased that to, we're only required 50 foot by falls, but we've actually made it 100 foot. So we'll have a primary and then we'll have a secondary educational and some type of buffer there. But we don't plan at this time to start advertising canoe and kayak access. I mean, the plan has has totally morphed, if you would say, from water to mountain biking and hiking. So that's more of our concentration at this time.
We certainly can't control people who put their kayaks on the river and paddle up or whatever. It is posted, but I mean, you can't control that if they're you know on the river paddling or whatever. But you can control them as far as if they're parking their boats, I guess, on that water and using it to get access to the park. I would think there'd be something you would want to address with that.
Yeah.
I don't know if you have or thought about it, but that's just one of the things I think you'd want to do. The other thing that was mentioned, I know Commissioner Puryear mentioned about the lights. The landowner, who I think he owns the land right there by, we got the access to easement, but if he wanted to put lights on his property, obviously he has that right to do that.
That's correct.
But that would not be us. That would not be the county putting those in.
That's correct. And I've had a number of conversations with the landowner, Mr. Tilley, and we'll work with Mr. Tilley any way we can.
Okay. And someone had mentioned, again, we mentioned it earlier, you mentioned it, the cemetery on the land, that's been taken care of, or what's the situation with that?
So the cemetery on the land, what we have planned for that, that you don't see on the site plan, is working with the Register of Deeds and of course working with our GIS Sally, and we would like to clean that cemetery up and make that part of the trail system. So that could be a historical part of the trail system. So similar to what's at Mayo, you know, there is a cemetery on that particular trail system as well. So that's our plan. That's our intentions, and we are obligated by law to take care of that cemetery since it is on our property.
My other question, I guess, concern I know was brought up is the easement of a future quarry access road. Is that possibility at all, or what are we looking at there?
So right now, we've done some research on that. We've reached out to Martin Marietta. Martin Marietta says that they do indeed have a legal access across that property. But if you read, and we've had some conversations with some other attorneys that said that that's not the case. We haven't gone down the road long enough to really dig into that issue, because we haven't heard from Martin Marietta whether they were going to exercise anything or not. And I'm sure if they do, they're going to have to give us some kind of really long notice, and they're going to have to go through some type of process with the Department of Environmental and Natural Resources. Now, let's say it's a worst-case scenario, which the worst-case scenario is they say, yes, we do. We're getting ready to move forward. Well, of course, I'm assuming, you know, they may have to go through a special use process like this, because that easement goes through a park, which is going through a residential section. I don't know how that works. The second part is they're going to have to, the community may be upset about that, so Martin Marietta may have to deal with that. And then the third thing that I want to mention is also in the agreement of Martin Marietta, they have to, if I'm not mistaken, if they were to exercise that agreement, they have to give the landowner full access to that easement. And then that easement actually has to be paved within 1 year to DOT specification. So, and like I said, given access for us to utilize it. So that's way down the road. I don't anticipate we would ever, in my professional opinion, that we would ever have to do that, but never say never. But that's where we are with that.
Well, I would hope not, 'cause that's a big deal. If
Yeah.
that goes through fruition, I mean, that would be a big deal.
Yeah.
So, anyway.
And the community would have a lot to say about that.
Mr. Hill, some hypothetical questions about that easement that may or may not exist. Hypothetically, if this park is approved, developed, comes into operation, and if Martin Marietta, the possible holder of an easement, goes through the process and receives from the state agency a permit to operate a quarry, and then seeks to make use of an easement partly across this county park property, would it be your intention, if you're still a county employee, to work with that company to try to negotiate the least harmful path for such an easement so that it would have minimal impact on park operations and on abutting properties?
Absolutely, and that was one of the first contingencies that we talked about in this project. That, you know, first and foremost, I know if the company actually did want to come here, they want to be good stewards of the community, and our plan would be to talk with that company and on the best plan to put that road in. Like you said, minimal impact. And of course, on the other side of the ticket, we do have a card in our pocket, because this is a stormwater program. So, you know, UNRBA and DENR may have some issue if they are not willing to work with us to put that easement in a manner that's going to be good for the environment and for the people.
One more question or to bring up is, it was mentioned by a gentleman out here today about the financial responsibility down the road. What's the thoughts on that? I know, you know, we've got grant money and things of that nature. What's the thoughts on that, what it would cost down the road for us to maintain that park, as far as your planning, 5 years, 6 years down the road, whatever?
So I'm actually, we'll be submitting a budget number since we are in the budget process. My intention is that, you know, dealing with maintenance is, we're probably, and I really don't want to quote this close into the game or this far out into the game, but if you need to add, you know, additional part-time staff, you're looking at about $15,000 a year for one. This is a passive park. It's going to be one of those pack it in, pack it out trash kind of a deals. we want to try to keep it like that natural, national park, state park feel to it. So I really think that our maintenance will be fairly minimal. Now, we will do trash pickup every day, but of course, we're not gonna pick up the entire Moore's Mill Road. We're gonna be specifically the right-of-way in and the park. Maintaining trails is not that expensive. Your biggest expense may be the bathrooms eventually, if that comes to fruition, that we actually put running water or electricity down there. So I don't want to really come up with that number like here, but I would say it would be minimal. It's not going to be like maintaining the sportsplex, where you're cutting grass every day or you're fertilizing every day. The idea is to keep it as natural as possible, and that's based on the IAI program.
Mr. Hill, let me draw your attention to the first finding of fact or criterion, public health or safety. One of the witnesses asked about restroom facilities. Can you address the likely solution to that issue, please?
Was the question, will there be-
restroom facilities?
Yeah, at this time, the first phase, you're probably going to see Porta-John for a restroom facility. The second phase would be down the road once and it all depends too. So we would like to have a restroom facility there, supporting the parking lot and supporting the facility. So we are proposing in our Parks and Recreation Trust Fund grant this coming March and April deadline for a restroom facility to be put down there. And we've already started to get cost figures to run electricity. We've already started to talk to environmental health about what it would take to put a restroom there, so on and so forth.
Still on that first finding of fact, public safety, one of the witnesses asked about public safety and potential county liability along the waterfront. Can you comment about what steps the county would likely take?
So we are going to be working with Timberlake Fire Department, Volunteer Fire Department, and of course our emergency services to come up with some type of protocol for an emergency that would take place on our property. Having said that, there's not going to be, and I'm not saying there's never going to be an emergency, but let's take Mayo Park for example. Mayo Park has a large shoreline. We deal with water access. We deal with a lot of situations where people are utilizing water. But we don't create attractive nuisances is our big thing. So for example, if we're saying stay off the riparian buffer, this is an ecosystem here, utilize the observation decks to take a look at the water, then we're trying to prevent them from getting in the water. Now, if they mentioned using a boat, I think the closest access from a trail to the nearest parking area to the water is almost a half a mile. Yeah, a quarter of a mile. So, you're gonna have to pick up your kayak, and if you're determined enough to walk a quarter of a mile with your kayak, and then go across the riparian buffer, which we will enhance, I can't do anything for situations like that. That would be similar to a situation where if somebody would go down under the Moore's Mill Bridge. I don't see any difference in liability between this park, emergency-wise, and Mayo Park.
And following up on that, is it fair to say that the staff has abundant experience with those potential waterfront public safety issues and potential county liability issues, and has learned lessons and engages in best practices? Is that fair to say?
That's correct. We do engage in best practices.
Anything else, anyone?
A couple things. John, we all, that know the area well, we know that the water really gets really high there during wet weather seasons. I've seen it probably 10 feet over the banks before. You're gonna be a 100-foot buffer from the river
That's correct.
to keep the hikers out of the water.
That's correct.
Okay, number two, we can't control what happens coming in on the other side of that river.
That's correct.
That's all I got.
Sir.
Anything else? We have, thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you, John.
Madam Clerk, is there anyone else?
There was no one else to speak unless there's questions for Mr. Andy Oakley, who is the architect for the project. Correct?
Mr. Hill, I do think the consultant plans to make a presentation, correct?
Andy Oakley, y'all probably recognize me. I used to work for the city of Roxborough. I now work for Thomas and Hutton. We're the landscape architect engineers that are working on this project for the county. I believe you've heard a lot of testimony and a lot of people in favor of this project, and I really don't have anything to add to Mr. Hill's testimony unless you have any questions for us. The planning director has noted the two special conditions. We will be meeting all permit and environmental requirements, and that does include North Carolina Department of Transportation and Environmental Health. So this is just one step in a process. And do you have any questions for me? Technical questions about the project itself?
I have none.
All right, gentlemen.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Motion to come out.
Mr. Chairman, a comment about
Still in, okay.
procedure while you are still in the public hearing. You can, if you wish, the board can close this public hearing and proceed to make a decision on the matter. Or you can, if you wish, continue the public hearing to a future meeting if, for example, you were to ask the staff to review the materials that have been submitted, and particularly suggestions for other conditions, and ask the staff to speak again at the continued public hearing, and inform the board whether in response to the comments and the materials that have been submitted, the staff wishes to recommend additional conditions. So it's up to the board on how to proceed.
I didn't know whether we would do it after we close this public hearing.
I would,
or-
Mr. Chairman, if you were to do the second one of those things I just said, I would suggest that you continue the hearing and then have staff testify again as part of the public hearing.
I think a continuation is probably good. I don't think any of us are opposed to this project. I keep hearing that. At the same time, I keep hearing some of the same concerns that we had in public meetings prior to this, and we still don't have any answers to those questions. And so that would be my suggestion that we talked about a second ago, that we move this out and have a continuation later with the question information back to the board so we can make a conscious decision on going forward with this. So we know, because I think we can all surmise that this park is not going to maintain itself. It's not going to control what goes on in there. We're going to have to do that. Traffic control, sure, but how? We need specifics and we need directions on how to move forward with this, and we just, at this point, I don't think we have it. Again, I'm certainly not opposed to the park itself, but if we're gonna do it, we're gonna do it right, because it is a county liability. And so we're left holding the bag, so to speak, when some of these issues aren't addressed, and something does happen down there. We might have thoughts about how we're gonna maintain it, thoughts about how we're gonna control it from the law enforcement side, traffic side, whatever it may be. Water, restroom facilities, all these things are still hypothetical and unanswered, so that would be my recommendation. I don't know about some of the rest of you on the board.
Mr. Chair, I just have a question
Sure.
on, is there a timeline or anything of that nature that will affect any grants or any money coming in? And is there a deadline that we need to look at as far as how soon do we need to meet again and talk about this?
Probably is a question for Mr. Hill.
Yes.
So our first application, our first review is going to be in March for the Parks and Recreation Trust Fund. We're hoping to have our application in place. It has all of our cost estimates and so on and so forth. That would include things like restrooms, parking areas, traffic signage, all of those things. And then on top of that, we do have, we did just recently receive $100,000 with the Piedmont Conservation Council, and now I have to figure out what their timeline is on getting started with that particular project as well, and that is for the repair and buffer. So there is, if we don't hit that mark, then our opportunity for that grant, which is in the amount of close to $400,000, then we're looking at next year, pushing it back.
If the board were to decide this at their next meeting on February 17th, would that be timely?
It has to be.
Oh,
That's all I
January
that's all I can say.
I'm sorry, January 17th. All right.
Yeah.
Right,
Well,
sorry.
my question, what improvements and staff recommendations or direction is this board asking if we delay in the public hearing? What are we asking John here, what are we asking the applicant to put more in-depth a more in-depth view of, such as a traffic study or an environmental study? Some of these questions, I mean, that's gonna take more than 2 weeks to come up with. I can only speak for myself, Mr. Chairman. I respect your opinion as well. Mr. Hill and the witnesses answered all our direct questions as they were presented to them. And if this direction this board should continue this public hearing, I'm just asking what direction we're asking our staff to do, and 2 weeks is a very limited time frame, especially with what the great opportunities are in front of us as well.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, the board, as I said, can do whatever the board wishes. Act now or continue the hearing if you want to do that until the next meeting, which is this month, not next month. At least one of the witnesses did recommend some things, and I know he put it in writing, that could be construed as suggestions for additional conditions. And my only question is whether the board wishes the staff to review those suggestions and report back to the board in a continued public hearing. You do not have to do that.
Mr. Attorney, I'm assuming you're referring to Mr. Allen's
Yes, sir.
comments? Exactly?
Primarily.
All right. Mr. Hill, would your staff and would the applicant's staff be able to address these facts of opinions that were presented by one of the witnesses tonight by the time our next meeting takes place, January 17th?
Well, I haven't had a chance to look at it. I mean, can I?
Sure.
Can I take a look and?
Yes. It's mainly the front and back was what he addressed.
Oh, thanks, Barry.
Mr. Chair, I'd just like, while he's looking, okay, go ahead.
So, we would have we would have time to do a detailed report, but I feel like that I have addressed these as we were discussing. The traffic issue, the traffic impact issue, I've already started that ball rolling with DOT. We don't have a park there yet, so there's no reason for me to even have a conversation with law enforcement yet to coordinate some type of protocol, schedules, or, advocate for them to do traffic control for the park. Those are protocols that typically take place during the development of a park. And that's one of those imponderables that you don't know how to fix it until you're dealing directly with it. I mean, you can do a traffic study all day long. I mean, I've done traffic studies in town, specifically for the rec center, stuff like that. We looked at Depot Street, we looked at others. Those things are only telling you what the counts are. So if I do a traffic study, it's just going to tell me how many people currently go down that road. And if you would, me and Andy actually talked about this past week about the traffic study.
This project would not require any kind of traffic study from DOT. The volume of traffic is so low, they consider it almost negligible. The average daily traffic on Moores Mill Road is, the average daily traffic is over 2,000 cars a day, and this park would generate probably less than 40. And so DOT will only be involved in reviewing a driveway permit, and it is not even going to be considered a commercial driveway from DOT's perspective.
Mr. Chair, my concerns, and we just mentioned this earlier, is that I don't want to see us lose the opportunity for $400,000 for this project. And so, time is important here. So that's just my concern is, how in-depth are we going to go into this, your findings, and trying to get answers for everything, and then also the timeline, and I don't want to lose the money. I want us to have that opportunity. So, anyway.
I feel like we also addressed the adjacent zoning, the Martin Marietta, and we also talked about the cemetery, our plans for turning the cemetery into part of the history of Person County and part of that trail system. The lights, we discussed the light and the noise. Of course, Person County already has I think there's already a noise ordinance, but that we already discussed the lights. There's no plan for lighting system at this time and I don't anticipate we're going to have lights even after we talk to law enforcement unless they actually want them. So, and if they do want them, then we have a conversation with the landowner. We talked about the effect of the financial devalue of property. And that was in number 3 here, of the adjoining and abutting properties. I've given you some studies that are, going ahead, they're illustrating how it's actually going to enhance the property value. Also, creating a repair and buffer project and enhancing that repair and buffer is actually going to probably help the property owners on the other side of the river as well. Because you're enhancing the river. Fences, that was addressed as well. That is a contractual obligation that we have based on the purchase. The collaboration, of course, we are going to have 2 more public meetings that the engineering firm is going to conduct for us for public information. And then we, of course, will take the information that we've already talked about through our 2 public hearings that we've already had, and then make sure that those are consistent with what we're hearing. Looking at the site plan, I would say that we have not addressed. I feel like professionally that we've addressed concerns above and beyond. Even in our preliminary, non-specific site plan, we addressed those. And I think you could see in our purchase agreement that has been addressed as well.
Mr. Chair, I think I agree with Mr. Perrier, I think we could go ahead and proceed if we can tonight, would be fine with me. We can go ahead and have that vote.
The proper motion would be to close the public hearing.
Mr. Chairman, move to close the public hearing.
Have a motion to close public hearing. All in the discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, none, motion carried. Okay, now, what is the pleasure of the board concerning the request tonight?
Mr. Chairman, I hereby move to approve the special permit SUP-01-23 for the county farm site for passive recreational park use with the following conditions. One, the application obtains all required permits from the County Environmental Health Department, Planning and Zoning, and Inspections Department. Number two, the application obtains required permits from the North Carolina Department of Environmental Quality and any other agency to achieve construction, operations, and maintenance of the subject property.
Have a motion on the floor. In discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None, motion carried. Thank you. Next on our agenda this evening is public comments, where we have 10 minutes set aside for citizen comments. And Madam Clerk, do we have
No, sir, we do not have anyone signed up this evening.
no one signed up? Item number 4 is motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Motion to approve.
Have a motion to approve. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None, motion carried. Item number 5 is MRF expansion feasibility study presentation by Ms. Everett. Good evening.
Amanda Everett, Director of Person Industries in the Person County Recycling Center. I am here tonight to present to you the findings of the requested MRF feasibility study excuse me, for the Person County Recycling Center, and also to share with you the exciting opportunity and information in regards to the potential relocation and merger of Person Industries over to the Martin Street Recycling Center location. With me tonight, I would like to introduce Matt Todd and Sherry Yarkowski, which are consultants with Resource Recycling Systems, as well as Jeff Marks Ryder, Project Director with Tina Bernard Designs. We will be sharing with you background information, technical evaluations, cost estimates, and operation models, as you have seen in the packets provided to you. We also will be discussing architectural and interior designs of the building expansion that will allow the merger of Person Industries and the Recycling Center. Jeff, Matt and Sherry.
All right, thank you guys.
afternoon,
Appreciate the
sir.
opportunity to present this project to you. I'm the project manager, Matt Todd with RRS. We have some slides here. You guys can see that on your iPads there. But just a quick introduction to RRS, Resource Recycling Systems. We're a recycling and sustainability consulting firm, actually based out of Ann Arbor, Michigan, but you're lucky we've got a dispersed workforce, and 2 of our staff, myself and Sherry included, are here in North Carolina. I'm in Durham, she's down in Chatham County. But we've been working with Amanda and the crew at the Recycle Center for almost 18 months now on this project, just to get things to this point. Essentially what we're doing, we're looking at all these, the places where RS works is in all these places in the value chain relative to recycling. So whether we're looking at collections, processing, and markets, and that connection to the marketplace, and then working with bodies like you for partnerships with policy and planning and funding and all that sorts of thing. So I'm going to hand it over to Sherry, who did a lot of the heavy lifting on the technical feasibility work. She's going to run through some of those slides with you. And then Amanda's going to come back up here and just talk about that merging of the current Person Industries with the Recycle Center. And then we've got Jeff more on the architecture side to talk about the planning for the new building and the design of that space. So I'll pass it over to Sherry.
Thank you, everybody, for having me here today. Again, I'm Sherry Yarkowski, and I am very excited to present our findings. It's been a long time coming. This is an exciting opportunity as well as a challenge to talk about merging the person industries functions from the North Madison location to potentially locating here at this very busy county recycling center that serves as the hub basically for your whole county, not only for the curbside, your typical materials that you get out of your home, your bottles, cans, newspapers, cardboard boxes, but this center also serves as the facility that takes the tires and electronics and all of that other electronics and white goods. So all of those all take place under this facility. So again, we looked at this opportunity to make some tweaks in the flow of the recycling system within the MRF, or the Materials Recovery Facility, and then also looking at ways to look at the cost associated with making some changes to that facility, and also to combine some of those the functions from the North Madison location. So in your packet, you have the documents that we provided, and they're a little out of order, so I'm going to start out with the 11/21/21 site technical evaluation. And you can, so when we started this project, we needed to do a deep dive into the current inventory of equipment, the material flow through this facility, and also look at the estimated future MRF system capacity needs. And you can see some of these photos we took during our site visit. This facility is jam-packed, and the manual sorting station is very primitive and very hands-on. And because of that, the workers are not able to effectively sort out all of those commingled household recycling products that come on that line. And that's, again, your typical stuff out of your household, your detergent bottles, your Coke bottles, and newspapers, and cardboard boxes, and that kind of stuff. So only 32% of the single stream recycling is effectively being able to be sorted by the workers on this line. And the remaining 68% are actually kind of pushed off to the side to, if there's time, to run them back on that line to sort again, or more often than not, that material is kind of cleaned up a little bit and then sent to a more mechanized recycling facility that actually pulls out those materials into saleable commodities. So there's a lot of opportunities to make this this recycling processing facility more efficient and optimal to actually get the materials out here and then sell the materials. What we're proposing is a different sort of arrangement for sorting the materials. And what we're proposing is to replace that conveyor system, that linear conveyor system, with this interesting new technology. It's a circular sorting system that also has, it's more for lower volume recycling centers, less than 10,000 tons per year. And it has some more automation and also some better ways to handle the material more efficiently. So if you look on the screen or on your iPads, you'll see there's about 4 to 5 workers on this system. And it's circular, so it's like a merry-go-round. It keeps going around and around. And so the workers have more opportunity to collect the materials, sort the materials out, and drop them into the appropriate bins. And then within this unit, there's also balers. So this helps with reducing the movement of collecting the materials and moving them to a staging area collecting enough and then baling them up. There's integrated balers within, we costed out 3 balers for the system so that you can put them in the bins and then bale as needed instead of moving it around and waiting and holding on and taking up valuable space in the building. So I don't know, where is the pointer? Well, I was just going to point on, there's a little map on, is this the point? Oh, there it is. So one of the other improvements we've made, we've moved the baler, or suggested to move the baler to include the flow of the materials. The baler's currently over here, and to flip it over here will just help with more efficient movement of materials through the facility. And then one of the, I think, brilliant ideas is, we're going to have hopefully more, the whole person industries workforce over here. And there's an opportunity, we've created this, it's a enclosed sortation system within the building, the new building that's being proposed, where folks that are less mobile will be able to participate in recycling too. So for instance, perhaps all the plastics, like your ones and two bottles and your yogurt cups, will all be sorted together, but then they will move over to this enclosure where folks that are perhaps in a wheelchair can help sort those commodities out into their own little resin bins and then sold to market instead of having another processor sell those to market. So we, with the cost of this system and flipping the baler and adding this enclosed climate-controlled sortation build or component, the cost, or this actually is not correct, it should be almost $1.3 million. We added a truck scale and conveyor and something else, and I forgot to update that, so I apologize. So I wanted to talk a little bit about market prices while I have your attention. So recycling commodities are very much like any other commodity. They go up and down, and you probably heard some things in the news about China not accepting our recycling about 5 years ago, and that was true. And you can see on the chart, the 10-year low was during this time where we had export restrictions and we had some contamination bans placed on us. But in reality, it was a blessing in disguise because it really gave the United States a kick in the pants to start looking at how we're going to handle our own commodities internally. So there's been a lot of investment in paper mills in the United States and plastics recovery. So, and then of course the little thing they'll call the pandemic happened, and which created a bunch of supply chain shocks, and then the price of recycling went sky high. And now it's kind of fallen down because our economy is also a little tenuous right now, but the chart below that average commodity revenue kind of gives you a ballpark range of average commodity prices applied to both what Person County currently has processed, which is a little over 1,100 tons per year, and then if there was a future infusion of more recycling collected, for example, if Roxborough added curbside, or if there were other communities, neighboring communities that wanted to use a more efficient MRF, since there's not one really close by here. So taking the cost of the average commodity price information and all the other information we gathered during the feasibility study, including the capital costs for adding this new sorting equipment, and other data that's specific to Person County. We applied this to an existing cost model that we have developed, and you will see there are two scenarios. We did two scenarios for you so that you could see. Scenario one is sort of what you would call the worst case scenario, and what this, and scenario two is some grant funding and some better lending terms that we think is probably a better, that's probably a more realistic scenario. But scenario one, you can see there's the capital cost of $1.3 million for the new equipment. And that, in this scenario, it is assumed that 100% of the funding would come from Person County with a funding rate or interest rate of 5%. In scenario two, we assume 50% funding, so which drops the capital cost down to $688,000 at 0% interest rate. And why that's possible is there's this closed loop fund that has recycling infrastructure funding for projects such as this. And then also there's an assumption that 50% of that capital cost would come from grant funding. There's an EPA grant funding that's been rolled out based on the bipartisan infrastructure program. So there's, over the next several years, there'll be some money to go after. And in North Carolina, there is the North Carolina Recycling Business Development Grant, and that's an annual grant funding program, and Person County has tapped into that in the past when I actually worked for the state, and I don't think I managed a grant, but anyway, so there, but looking at this cost model, it shows you the capital costs for both scenarios, the operating costs, and then the processing revenue you could realize given that your average material value is $111. Now that said, in both scenarios, there is a negative net revenue. However, if Person County wanted to, say, make this program cost neutral or the net, or a wash, then under scenario two, what you would charge is an $82 per ton tip fee for the users of the facility. So any haulers that came in, any user that would use the center, so that could be worked out. But under the scenario two, the average or the tip fee would be reduced to $26 for that better terms of getting grant funding to reduce the capital cost. And I mentioned about that, this is just some information about the different grants and the closed loop infrastructure fund that I wanted you all to have available. I know Amanda's been working on that and looking at those opportunities. So I'm gonna kick it back to Amanda, and then I guess we'll take questions at the end. Okay.
So as she was talking about some of the grant, we'll get to that in a minute, but I just kind of wanted to go over a few of the information in regards to the operations and the merger. Just some background information on Person Industries. When the building was purchased, it was purchased for $187,000 with the agreement that the building and all updates go back to the owner at the expiration of the lease, which is May 25th, 2025. Currently, the tax value of the building at 601 North Madison Boulevard is $541,000, with the understanding that the owner is not willing to entertain lowball offers anywhere in the vicinity of that $500,000 tax value. Current needs of the building are major improvements. It is aging and it is in great need of repairs, not to mention needing a brand new roof, which we're looking at between $300,000 and $400,000, new flooring, AC system, as well as bathroom and plumbing updates are needed. So in regards to the purchase alone of the building and including the updates that would need to be made to the building to be sustainable, we're looking at over about $2 million at the baseline of what it could possibly cost to purchase that location, and even not even just to start
on the updates that would be needed. Background information for the Person County Recycling Center. Of course, that building was purchased in 2015. At that time, we received some funding through, it was a project loan that was throughout the county, and we received some funds from that. We were able to do ADA updates, which included a sprinkler system, emergency exit lightings and signs. We connected to the city water lines, fencing. We were able to update the bathrooms in the warehouse, ADA, and then we had paved parking and a new roof on that building. We have office areas now that are there that are being held up very, they're safe, but it's very old. It's paneling walls. We had to tear down the second layer of those offices because they were insufficient to be used. So we are making do with everything that we can. At this time, of course, the warehouse is not temperature regulated. And then, of course, we need staffing and space for trainings, tours, and education and outreach. And then I mentioned on here operations. After the update and the merger, we will have scales. We will be able to provide things a little bit more efficiently and, of course, a lot more safely. And then just kind of talking about what's next. As Sherry mentioned, increased tonnage. That Revolution system will allow us to be able to process material a lot quicker and more efficiently. Our floor loading area, we will have newer equipment at this time. The equipment in the recycling center is approaching 14 years old, and that's very outdated for what we're doing. We're making the best of what we have. A lot of our Rhonda Gentry performs a lot of our in-house repairs before we try to call people to have to do the big repairs. Streamlined processing, and then recycling opportunities within Person County and potential partnerships. The upgrades will also provide, like I mentioned before, safety, and then the ability for the processing. It will also hopefully help us reach a financial sustainability. The more we sort, the better the pricing. So as she mentioned, we have that opportunity to sort down commodities even clearer, and we can sell those for better return. So building merger highlights, just a couple of them, is the efficiency. One, building maintenance. Right now we are maintaining 2 locations, and we're going back and forth between those. It will allow us to have access to my number of staff at all times at one location. Of course, our safety and our security. This opens a vast array of employment opportunities for those that we serve within our program in regards to our adults with disabilities. And how exactly will Person County citizens benefit? This will streamline recycling services and the ability to accept and process other commodities, opportunities to offer extended recycling services. An example, our hours can be extended. We could offer more household hazardous waste, events, and opportunities to accept those at the recycling center, and then we could even explore options for growth. And as Sherry was talking about the different grants, we have been the recipient of the NCDEQ Community Waste Reduction Grant. Pretty much for the past 10 years, we've received those for education outreach, just to keep the community up to date on recycling acceptables at our facility. And the EAP Solid Waste Infrastructure Recycling Grant, I'm already looking into that. That is a minimum of $500,000 with a max of $4 million that you can get on that project. So I will be applying for that. And then, as she was talking about closed loop infrastructure funding, this funding it's replicable and it's financially sustainable to sustain recycling infrastructure and innovation projects in the U.S. And it's based on collection, sorting, processing, and reclaiming, and what your end product is going to for manufacturing. I've had multiple meetings with Closed Loop, and I actually have another meeting with him. His name is SK tomorrow, just to kind of discuss some additional things. And as Sherry mentioned, they offer 0% financing for those types of projects. And so now Jeff is going to speak a little bit on our architecture and interior discussions. in regards to the addition that we would add on to the front of the recycling center, and that is where Person Industries would move into.
Good evening. Good evening. My name is Jeff Markshutter. I work for Tina Barn Designs in Raleigh. We were contacted by RRS to sort of lay out schematic designs, preliminary floor plans for how the Person Industries facility could be integrated into the existing recycling facility. So while RRS has the full technical recycling center layout, our plans really start where the Person Industries facility meets that. So we are proposing a two-story, approximately 20,000 square foot building addition that would house all of these Person Industries components. There's also, on the left side, over on this side is a production facility within the recycling center. Up on the top here, you see the key plan. So this square is the existing recycling center. And this production facility would allow interaction, that gray area in between the recycling center and the new building addition. So the new building addition would be exterior here. I believe you also have additional narratives from a structural engineer, civil engineering, architecture, and interiors that describes the components of this work. But just as a general layout, we are coming out of this main recycling facility maintaining dock door positions that are both above and below this expansion. That's to facilitate the use of trucks, and that works with the workflow of the recycling center around this new addition. So this new addition juts out in between those usable intake and outtake doorways that are going to maintain the flow of recycling materials. The existing drive-up for Person County customers is maintained on this bottom side of the building, so that is not changed. But this interior, this is the first floor plan here. On the left side here is a larger office area with conference rooms, offices for the Person Industry component. In the center, we have restrooms, some tool and utility rooms here, and then a large break room that will facilitate all of the people who occupy this facility or visit that facility under the PI program. This first floor is about half a floor down from the existing floor of the recycling facility. So you'll notice there's a ramp and stairs up into that. We also have an ADA lift proposed to get up to the second floor to maintain ADA compliance. On the second floor plan, additionally, there is, you would come up there's two stairways and an elevator, or ADA lift, which acts like an elevator, into a second floor lobby. There's a large observation overlook, which is intended to overlook the recycling facility for demonstration, teaching, and just viewing the operations down below inside the facility. Additionally to that, there's another office suite on the second floor with a large conference room, and that's where a lot of the employees of the facility will have their offices. Also on this upper floor, there's a large training area. This is also for the PI program. They can teach life skills and do other events in that area. And then this top right corner is for future expansion or open office area.
The additional space that you saw on the second floor, that will also be open, of course, to be used for any departments or organizations. Right now, we host CPR and first aid training at PI in our conference room, and so those locations would be available for any other departments or organizations to be used as well. Until we started having to kind of move things around to make sure that we had enough coverage at both locations, we hosted a lot of tours, and so that area on the top floor will come in handy for us to be able to start bringing in civic and education groups as well.
Do you have any questions for me at this time? I know it's a lot of information.
Did I overhear earlier that the new conveyor is gonna be like a revolving?
Yes, sir. It's a round system, and so not only is it safer, it allows us to, right now, as she talked, it's a linear, we have a linear sort line, and so the material is put into an infeed. It goes up, it goes across the sort line, and then it dumps off at the end into a hopper. So what happens is that we have to have someone on a forklift or a bobcat that goes around, empties, gets that hopper, brings it back around to the beginning of the sort line, dumps it, and we keep doing that over and over until we can sort the material. This round, the Revolution system, will allow us to continue to move the material around and around, and it'll allow easier sorting.
Faster.
Yes, sir, much faster.
This plan.
Go ahead.
Sorry.
Go ahead, sir.
This plan is, as far as employment, or will it increase employment, the number of employees you'll have here, or will it decrease?
No, it should be able to increase the number of employees and the number of employment opportunities that we can provide for adults with disabilities.
Right.
Staff-wise, we are good right now, as long as we do, but once we start expanding any type of recycling services, so if you guys, if the county, say, wanted to start where we did our own recycling pickup, that's when we would have to start requiring additional staff. But we can man, with the number of staff that we have right now, we can man the system and the location altogether, and it would allow us to provide those additional jobs to those that are seeking employment within our services.
I guess, do we have any garbage services that are recycling, like
We
house
have-
to house type thing?
First Piedmont picks up commercial, and then Clayton and Hurdle is bringing their recycling to us.
Okay.
Yes, sir. And then, of course, all the individuals that drop it off
Right.
on their own.
How secure is the DEQ funding that's mentioned here? Are we?
The DEQ funding is usually, it's fairly secure as long as all the paperwork's turned in and the deadlines are met. We've always gotten the grants that we've applied for them, but they have been lower amounts because they've just been for education outreach. They do have specific grants, though, in place for infrastructure and recycling sustainability. So we feel very confident that that is something that we would obtain because of the work that RRS has put into and us having all the data that backs up all the additional tonnage that we could process and how the county could benefit from that.
Another question, what's the truck gonna be used for?
Sir,
The truck?
which truck?
Aren't you purchasing a truck, transfer truck or something?
No, scales. We're purchasing
Or scales,
scales.
that's fine.
Yes, sir.
Right.
Scales
Okay.
for the trucks to come across.
Will that be outside?
Yes, sir. That will allow us to be more efficient
Right.
in what we charge, and that way we would be more comparable to other MRFs. Like, material wouldn't have to go all the way to Durham. We could end up being the end user for those accounts because we would have a scale for the trucks to go across, and we could charge the appropriate amounts.
That's good.
Then I don't think we can put a value on what this center provides to some of our citizens that have special needs.
Thank you.
And I think we owe that to these individuals and not forget them. This
We
provides
appreciate
them
that.
a wonderful service. But with the current mindset of recycling, not only in Person County, but internationally for that matter, what would it, tonnage-wise, what would it take to get to the point of, just say, self-sustaining?
Do y'all have any of those numbers maybe?
Self-sustaining, you mean where it costs, where the value of the material is more than the
cost to run the program.
You're somewhere, I don't mean 100%,
That's
but.
kind of, I'm sorry, I'll step up to the mic. That's kind of a myth. I mean, we think about recycling now more as a service than I mean,
You're
back in the
right,
old
it
days
is
when
a-
you were
it
just
is a
doing
service.
newspaper and aluminum cans and, you would sort of turn it in for money and get it back right away, that would, but recycling now is more of a service where you're taking all this mixed material and turning it into a commodity. And all that machinery, you've seen some of the, I mean, this is a lower end system, but there's some out there that, they'll process 30, 35 tons an hour, and it's a, $25 million system to build that. So that all costs money, as you
Oh, it
can
does.
imagine. And so the value there is it's more of think of it as a utility service for your
Kind of a
residents.
twofold service. It's a service to those that work there, as well as
The service to the employees as well. Yep.
citizens of the
You got it.
county. But just a question, financially speaking. Thank you.
Also add, like, when commodity prices are really high, for instance, some counties, like Orange County, they have contracts with the Sunoco MRF, and they'll have a revenue share. So if commodity prices go crazy, they may get some money back. But as Matt said, it's a utility, and it should be treated as just like any, you don't say, like, you pay to have your garbage landfilled, and eventually that landfill space, you'll need to build another landfill. This is saving airspace in our limited landfill space in our state. And oops, sorry, I'm breaking your stuff. And also all those commodities go and feed local recycling, businesses, like Envision and, Polywood, all those, manufacturers need and want recycled material for their products, so.
Amanda,
Yes, sir.
if I'm not mistaken, the combined facilities, especially leaning toward recycle, that was self-sustaining within the past 10 years?
Yes, sir.
And with
But
the
a lot of,
decline in the economy, we're
yes, sir.
kind of going in the hole a little bit now. So we're looking to come back out of the hole.
Oh, yes, I mean, there's
Especially with
always,
this new stuff.
yes, sir.
Thank you.
There's always great potential.
Right, oh, yeah, yeah.
Further questions? This is informational, no action, but any further questions, comments?
Thank y'all very much.
Thank you for folks for coming. Sorry to keep you so long. Item number 6 on the agenda is proposal for Person County Fire Prevention and Protection Ordinance. Marshal Adam Morris.
I know y'all been sitting up here for a little while. Y'all want to take a break before we get started?
No,
Get up,
shut
move
up.
around.
Oh, we're
good. So good evening. Mr. Chairman and Commissioners, I'm here tonight to introduce and present a proposed fire prevention and protection ordinance for Person County. After starting in my role last January, I began to search for any documentation dealing with code enforcement and what the Fire Marshal's Office had on file for enforcement. The only item found within Person County system was the false fire alarm ordinance that some of you all approved back in 2017 and revised in 2020. I then reached out to the Office of State Fire Marshal in Raleigh to see if they had any records. So the only item that was found was back in August of 1992, which was Person County's first fire marshal sent it in for the inspection frequency for Person County. So that'll be on page 118 in your packet. This is the only document found. Like I said, it's over 30 years old, so nothing has changed with this. This is how we go out and do our inspections, whether it be 1 year, 2 years, or 3 years. The staff at OSFM did recommend that we move forward with adding additional measures with this for the county. Most of the surrounding counties and in North Carolina have some type of ordinance in place dealing with fire protection in the fire marshal's office. Some are less detailed like this one that I have before you, or some can be more complex. Most of the time, you as the Board of Commissioners are the ones who come for asking for ordinances, not the fire marshal. But in this situation, this dealing straight with the office and the inspections that we deal with, it's recommended that we put the ordinance together, go through the steps to get it approved, and then bring it for you all for approval. So a sample document was sent to me to start working on that will cover all the basic job duties pertaining to the fire marshal's office as far as code enforcement, which is out of this book right here, and any other duties that we may perform on a daily basis. All of this material in the ordinance is either referenced out of this fire code book, which is 2018, North Carolina General Statutes, the false fire alarm ordinance that you all approved, or we do have 2 new items that are county-specific. So in the document that you see is several pages long. I'm just going to kind of hit on a little bit of each chapter. Chapter 1 is the administration part. So that's the general intent of the ordinance and referencing using the fire code book, which we have right here. Chapter 2 is the duties of the fire marshal's office, pretty much pertaining to what we do and how we go through and enforce those. Chapter 3 is the inspection frequency on like doing our inspections, 1 year, 2 year, 3 years. None of that has changed other than they've added some parts in there about residential and carbon monoxide checking. Chapter 4 is the permits and plans reviews that we do, as well with building inspection department on the fire prevention and fire detection systems. So this goes over how you would obtain those, calling the office and going to the webpage to find the application and permits. Chapter 5 is unsafe building. So if we're out doing an inspection and we find an unsafe building, what we can do and how we can go about doing that. Chapter 6 is the civil penalties and the fines that we can impose on them if we find anything. Chapter 7 is how to report a hazard or a violation. So if the public finds anything and they want to submit it in, this is how you go through doing it. Chapter 8 is the collection of fees. So you all approve a fee schedule each year in the budget. So when we do our inspections, it's based off of the square footage that was approved back in 2012, and it's been a little bit increased since then. We do have some businesses and places that we go to do inspections that, of course, do not want to pay. So within the last 2 years, we've had about 12 of these facilities that do not pay. And they could be anywhere from corporate businesses, small churches, or regular businesses. So what we generally do is send them a statement. When we do our inspection, we give it to them there. After 30 days, we'd send another statement out. So then you're at 60 days. After the 60 days, we'll send the third one out. So then we get to the 90 days. So we keep on going and going and going, or we stop. We don't have anything in place to say, hey, this small business here paid their fee, but we have a large corporate that does not pay the fee. Where do we stop that and make everybody pay the same thing? So that's where this will be addressed in this situation. That way they could be passed over to the attorney to collect those fees. Chapter 9 is the false fire alarm ordinance that you all approved. So we're just incorporating that to do away with that ordinance. That way we'll have everything under one thing. Chapter 10, that's going to be the controversial one that most people are not aware of. So that's the open burning. So currently, Person County does not have any rules against this. The North Carolina Division of Air Quality has an open burning rules section, which is 1900, that was adopted in 1971, so over 50 years ago. That spells out what can be burned and what cannot be burned, which is in sections 10.9 and 10.10 of your packet. Rubbishes and trash are items that cannot be burned. So you can actually now take your trash to the landfill. It doesn't cost you anything to dispose of it, take it to the recycling center and stuff like that. But we do have people that's been living here all their life. That's all they've ever done is burn trash. We understand that. The Division of Air Quality in 2022 came to Person County that we know of 3 times regarding some of these matters. They do have fines that go anywhere from $500 to $25,000 a day, depending on what the items are being burned and how bad they want to enforce it. So this could be a potential that if they keep on responding out here, speaking to some of their representatives there, that they could start issuing the county fines because we don't have anything in place on this. So right now, like I said, people can go out and burn trash. The only thing we can do is go out and educate them on it. If we keep going out, we'll send them a letter, then we'll start trying to impose a fine on, but we don't have anything in place to back us with that. The volunteer fire departments and Roxborough Fire Department goes out to different fires. They may find out it's a grass woods fire, but when they get there, there's somebody actually burning trash. The winds got up and it's escaped out. So with this, we wouldn't come out and want to start enforcing fines off the get-go. We want to educate the public. So we would, of course, do something on social media. We get with the courier, put an ad out, and try to enforce this and get the news out there so everybody understands this is not something that we're going to come out the door and start giving fines on it. One thing to think about this is that, houses are being put up throughout the county. A lot of this, the trees are being harvested, so we have pine plantations or young trees. So you may have a house on this corner, 50 foot away, you got a house over here. Or if this person here decides to burn, they go back inside, the wind picks up, where's that gonna go? Potentially it's going to that other house. Well, if you got somebody that's home, they're asleep, working nighttime shift, or kids are home from school, house catches on fire, who's gonna be ultimately responsible for it? the person who set the fire over here, then we're gonna be looking at it too, that we don't have anything in place to kind of set aside for that. So that's one of the biggest things with this. We did have some reports throughout the last year that we worked on. A lot of these I went out to and actually talked to the individuals about, you can't do this. They were open to that. We did have some that unanimously people reported them in, took pictures and called, said, hey, my neighbor's over here burning this. We will send out a letter to them showing the information of what can be burned, what can't be burned. And then for the most part, we haven't had any more issues with that. But we do have some repeat offenders on this. So that would be the ones we'd have to, you know, kind of educate, and then this where this fine would come in where we can enforce that. This also gives us authority. Back in 21, you all had the approval when we had the burning ban that year when it was dry. This would also give us the authority, once the state issues a burning ban, we can do it as well. The way that generally works is the fire marshal's office and fire department covers from a residence out 100 foot. Anything over 100 foot, the forestry service covers. So with this, that will give us some lenience, and we can go out and actually enforce with this as well. We won't have to come back and get your approval for that. Chapter 11 is the Knox box system. So Knox boxes are little small black boxes you see out in front of businesses, the county buildings, churches and so forth for putting them up. So those businesses and organizations are trusting the fire departments to put their key in that box. The fire departments have a special key that's coded for the county. Now, I'm sure you can probably go anywhere in North Carolina, United States probably has that same key, but nobody else is gonna have that key. Only the fire department personnel has that. So with the grant that we got, the second one, the $300,000 grant, we did obtain key boxes that will be put on each fire engine so that the fire department has access to that. The chief will designate a code on that, which is laid out in this chapter 11. I will be the one to enter that into the computer so I can give privileges and revoke those privileges if a member joins the department or leaves the department. So then that way we're not leaving the key unattended on a fire truck where anybody can come up there any time of day or night and go to a business and open it up and go in there free range. This is kind of a controlled, secure measure with this. So that explains the process of how that works. Chapter 12 is the fireworks permits. So we really don't have to deal with that a whole lot other than the city and the county kind of work together with this for the 4th of July. But there are businesses that have asked about doing fireworks, but there's a process that they have to go about doing that. So that explains that in there, which is a whole complete chapter out of this book. And chapter 13 is the last one on hazardous materials and substances. So back at the very beginning of the meeting where Duke Energy presented the grant, this would kind of lay out on a spill that was had taken place where we could actually go back with emergency management and bill that company, that organization to recover some of those costs that were used for the supplies and to mitigate that spill. So that would be working in hand with the emergency manager. So this is just an overview of the ordinance that's best suited for Person County. Like I said, this is a small, simple one. This is what the state kind of give us that a lot of small counties have. There's nothing complex with it. This process began back last year in February. So I got it put together, sent it to the previous county manager and assistant county manager, which is Ms. Kathy now, for them to look at and to move forward with it. After that, I had to send it to Mr. Hankins and let him review it. After he reviewed it, we made a few changes. I sent it to OSFM. They had their take and review it. So if I came to you first and then you approved it, then I sent it to OSFM and they didn't like the way the wording was, I'd have to come back and redo it again. So I went through that process. Mr. Hankins, then OSFM, so they have signed off on it. The way timing was, this was the best opportunity to get it presented to you. So what I have here is the recommended change document for you. After speaking with Mr. Hankins, and with this being a detailed document, we just agreed to make this a introduce and to propose it to you tonight. Not looking for a definite answer. This will give you time to review. If you want to look at anything on here, look at the general statutes, ask questions, see what's in there. It'll give you time to review it, and as well, you don't have to, but you could have a public hearing on this if you would like. Then you could come back in 2 weeks, which will be the next meeting, January 17th, or 4 weeks will be the February 6th meeting for your disposition on this. If you approve it, then I would get the signature page, which is the last page. Then I would have to send this back to OSFM. They would then go to the Code Council, which is the ones that approved our fire code book, inspection book, so forth. Then I would actually have to go to their meeting in the quarter, which would be in March, 1st of April. They would present it to them, and then it would be documented on North Carolina files. That way we have something on Person County and North Carolina for the document. And that's usually their procedure, because you're picking some of the, they have amendments in here, but we're not doing any of the amendments. That way they have it on file, which you actually have adopted with this. So Mr. Hankins, I know you helped out a whole lot with this. Do you have anything else that I may have overlooked to add to it?
Just that between the two of us, we certainly have worked hard on this. You can tell there are a lot of legal issues in this, a lot of statutory compliance and consistency issues. I've done my best to make sure that all of that was addressed. Those changes that I recommended, all of them were made and are in the draft that you have before you. And I certainly agree that an ordinance this long and detailed is not something the board ought to adopt on the spot, but you ought to review it, think about it, and it might not be a bad idea to schedule a public hearing if the board sees fit to do that. As Chief said, the statutes do not require a public hearing.
I like what you put together for this. I guess, and the one thing I hope that someday we can accomplish or get to, as you mentioned, there are companies that you sit there and say, okay, you got 30 days to pay, 60 days to pay, 90 days to pay. How long do we continue on with that? And, if there's no bite in the policy, then, people are not going to take it as serious, in my opinion. I have driven by when it's very windy and people burning leaves in their ditch. And I've sat there and mentioned it to I call the fire department and say, look, you might want to check it out. It's a burning ban in place, but you got people that will do that. Either A, it's not communicated to where these people know that it's a burning ban, or they're just going ahead and doing it, knowing that there is, and just going to go ahead and burn their leaves or whatever. And again, as you know, that can get out of control real quick. So I hope that as we go forward, that we can look at that and look and put some bite into this ordinance. And I think that's the key to any ordinance, is having a little bit of bite to it, or else people are just going to continue doing what they're doing, and you're not ever going to get that fine you're going to get. It'll continue on for 2 years or something, you know?
Right.
So anyway.
Yeah, that was the biggest thing with having the fees in there, because prior to this, I found out that they were sending the letters of 30 days, then 60 days, and 90 days, and then you keep on. Where do you stop at? Do we turn it over to the attorney and let them take care of it?
Well, I think you've done a good job, and thank you for putting this together for us.
So just some numbers real quick. We did, prior to me coming in 2021, they did have about 12 folks that did not pay. This year, or 2022, about the same thing. We did 128 inspections. So, that's only a small number, but some of those are some corporate stores that we kind of have to go through other chains to get to where it needs to go. We did have a couple inspections that were just done in December, so they haven't had time to pay, so it may change a little bit. But as far as the illegal burning, in 2020, had roughly 14 to 15 cases that were documented. 2021, we had about 52 cases and that we actually sent letters out. Well, 2022, which was last year, we only had about 20, 25 thereabouts. Some of these, it started turning off wet towards the end of the year, so when the leaf seasons come in, we didn't have all that to worry about. But a lot of these where people would send in, and I'd go out, and we'd go out and educate them, talk to them about what you're not supposed to, give them the flyers about it, and, okay, we pretty much haven't had to go back, so that's kind of working itself, but we want to educate everybody on what to do.
Very good, thank you so much. Do we want to set a date and go ahead with the public hearing?
Who to have the public hearing, the first meeting in February?
Okay, that's good. Any further questions? Thank you, sir.
Thank you for your time.
Appreciate it. Good job. Next item on the agenda is item number 7, is the 2023 Commissioner Committee assignments. We've gone over, I have with each of the commissioners, and looked at our committee assignments, and we've got all those covered, and I've spoken with each one individually, and so far as I know, we're all in agreement with our assignments here, but we're free to discuss those further if anyone sees it necessary to change. And of course, if things change like your work schedule and you could no longer meet at the designated time for those committee assignments, then we have swap jobs amongst ourselves if we need to, and so then we actually need to vote on this.
By consensus or a vote, yes.
Yes, so, and I would say too, if you haven't already, get in touch with Madam Clerk, and she can give you the meeting time and dates for each of those committee assignments, and we'll go forward. So what's the pleasure of the board?
Accept the chairman's recommendations for committee assignments.
I have a motion on the floor. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None motion carried. Item number 8 is appointments to boards and committees. Ms. Reeves?
I'd like to present to you all interested citizen and agency applications for consideration for appointment to boards and committees in response to an ad that was published in the local newspaper and on the county website. I would ask the board to nominate and appoint as deemed appropriate. The first one we have applications for is a new advisory board established by the board's adoption of the Farmland Preservation Ordinance called the Agricultural Advisory Board. The county has solicited for interested citizens, individuals to the broadest possible representation of the geographical regions of Person County and to represent, to the extent possible, all segments of agricultural production existing within the county. For consideration of the ordinance requirements, the applicants are to be Person County citizens and/or a landowner. The ordinance established that this committee be established with a staggered terms. So we are looking at 2-year term, 2 positions, 3-year term, 2 positions, and a 4-year term, 3 positions, for a total of 7 seats. You have received before you in your application 6 applications: Mr. Cal Berryhill, Norman Boyette, Roy Carver III, Fred Fox Jr., Hunter Thomas, and Bruce Whitfield. Staff vetted these applications, and there was one that did not qualify per the ordinance requirements as being a Person County citizen and/or landowner, and that was Mr. Norman Boyette, who lives in Lewisburg. So I would ask the board to nominate for the staggered terms. If you would, I'd like to see if there's any nominations for the 4-year terms. We have 3 seats available, and of these 6 applications, we have 5 viable applications.
Mr. Chairman, nominate Fred Fox Jr. for a 4-year term.
Okay. All in favor of the motion for Mr. Fox, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, none, motion carried.
Any other nominations for either of the term limits, 4-year, 3-year, or 2-year?
I'll make a motion for 4-year for Hunter Thomas.
Any other?
Also nomination for Cal Berryhill for 4 years.
Berryhill and Thomas for 4 years.
So that will be our 3 seats for the 4-year term if approved by the board. So I'd ask you to take action on Hunter Thomas by Commissioner or Vice Chairman Sims, as well as nominated by Commissioner Puryear for Cal Berryhill.
Okay, I heard your motion there. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, none, motion carried. I would like to, let's see, next one down, Madam Clerk.
We have Roy Carver III, as well as Bruce Whitfield, to be considered if deemed appropriate for either a 2-year or 3-year term.
I would nominate Roy Carver III for a 3-year term.
And I would like to nominate Bruce Whitfield for a 3-year term.
Good. Okay, we have those 2 nominations. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None, motion carried.
All right, thank you. That will conclude for this committee, and we will re-advertise, obviously, for the remaining staggered term for 2 years. Next on our list is the Airport Commission. We have 2 reappointments requested. Mr. Dusty Wall to represent as a citizen at large. Stephen Watkins requests reappointment as the licensed pilot. What is the desire?
motion that we reappoint both Mr. Wall and Mr. Watkins. Any discussion there? All in favor say aye. Opposed, none, motion carried.
All right, next we have our Board of Adjustment. We have Ms. Cynthia Litch requesting reappointment, serving as a citizen at large.
Motion to reappoint Cynthia Lynch.
Motion to appoint Ms. Lynch. All in favor say aye. Opposed, none, motion carried.
Thank you. The Environmental Issues Advisory Committee, we have 2 applications for new appointments. Mr. Stephen Evans, representing the Cunningham Township, as well as Mr. David Thomas, representing the Mount Terza Township.
I would like to nominate Stephen Evans.
I nominate David Thomas.
Okay, we have those 2 nominations. All in favor of Mr. Evans and Thomas, say aye. Aye. Opposed? None, motion carried.
For the Juvenile Crime Prevention Council, we have 2 reappointments. One is our county manager, Catherine Cathy, as well as a Ms. Martha Pickett to represent as the substance abuse professional on JCPC.
Motion to appoint both.
A motion to appoint both. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? None, motion carried. Okay.
Another newly advisory committee established is our Opioid Settlement Advisory Committee. You all gave direction to solicit and recruit for this opioid-related health concerns impacting the residents of Person County, and to advise the board of options to expend the funds to remedy opioid impacts, as well as to plan and host an annual meeting open to the public to receive input on the proposed uses of the settlement funds and to encourage collaboration between local governments. The community agencies have submitted applications for emergency services. We have our EMS director, Thomas Swallenberg. From the sheriff's office, we have the narcotics sergeant, Benjamin Massey. From Person County Schools, we have Jenna Reagan, who is senior executive director of student support and secondary education. From the Roxborough Police Department, we have Chief David Hess. From the Health Department, we have our Public Health Director, Janet Clayton. Representing VIA Health is Elliot Clark, our Regional Director for Community Relations. From Person Memorial Hospital, we have Casey Sharp O'Quinn, the Director of Pharmacy, as well as Carlton Paler, Social Services Director, representing the Social Services Department. At this time, this is all the applications we have. We will seek other applications for citizens at large and substance use treatment provider representatives, as well as an employer business leader representative and a community group related, working with opioid concerns. But at this time, I'd like to present those community agency applications for consideration.
Motion to accept the representatives for the following community agencies.
And these would be for an unspecified term.
All in one motion?
Yes, sir.
Yes. Okay, all in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None, motion carried. Okay.
We had an error in your packets. We had solicited or had accepted a application on related to the PATS Transportation Advisory Board. Once I looked into that, I let Mr. Francello Bumpus know that his term was not ending this December, but in '23. So he is still valid for 1 more year, so there's no need to reappoint him at this time. So we'll go on to the Tourism Development Authority. We have 1 position for a representative of Hotel, Motel, B&B, Lodging, Dr. Claudia Berry, who requests reappointment. And also, we have 1-year term available for a citizen at large. We have 2 applications, Autumn Gentry, as well as Allison Thomas, requesting appointment.
Mr. Chairman, do I need to recuse myself from this vote?
That would be preferable.
Okay.
Okay, well, I'll make a motion that we reappoint Claudia Berryhill.
Motion to appoint Autumn Gentry.
Okay, we have Those two, all in favor as stated, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None motion carried. Okay.
All right, and one last one to consider tonight. The Workforce Development Board, Ms. Allison Thomas has requested appointment as the Business and Industry Representative, and we also were seeking applications for a member or officer of organized labor, to which we had no applications. So tonight, I would ask you to consider Ms. Thomas's application to be for an initial one-year term as a Business and Industry Representative.
Motion to appoint Allison Thomas.
Have a motion to appoint Ms. Thomas. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None motion carried.
Thank you, that's all I have.
Thank you. Item number 9 on the agenda is utility easement request from the City of Roxborough. Ms. Rasheed.
Good evening, Commissioners. Just to a little history, back in July, you approved a Western Utility Extension easement for the City of Roxborough, which went by Sportsplex. This is a continuation of that same Western Sewer Line extension. This particular part of the extension goes under the highway at the Senior Center, goes under Highway 57, and the proposed sewer line, once it crosses 57, comes up on our property in the corner of the Senior Center property, the corner between that and TK Associates, and then it goes over on their side of their border property line and goes down TK's border, goes back to the Pepsi property. Eventually, it works its way over to Leesburg Road. But as I said, this, just as it crosses the Highway 57, it will be on our property for a short amount of time. The easement details are in your packet, and I present this for board consideration. And if the easement is approved, Chairman Powell, Clerk Reeves, and a notary will be required to sign. Any questions?
Comments, questions?
Motion to authorize the chairman for the, sign the easement agreement.
Have a motion. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, none. Motion carried. Thank you, sir. Item number 10 is courthouse wireless expansion, WAVE, in parentheses there, project. Mr. Fashee and Ms. Weinberg.
Okay, again, just a bit of history, and I've got Clerk Barker here to help me if we need any detailed explanations, but back in September, you approved a CRAVE project through consent agenda in the amount of about $17,000 to basically fit the courtroom with remote capabilities. It was an AOC project. The project was conducted by them, and once completed, we'll pay them the $17,000 some odd dollars. This is confusing because this one is called the WAVE project. This is again an AOC project, AOC being the judicial branch of the court systems, administrative office of the courts. This particular project is to, its process is to equip all the counties in North Carolina, all the courthouses with wireless capabilities. Everybody's going to the pads like you have. They are intending to be able to walk from courtroom to courtroom, or when a judge walks into the courthouse, he's automatically connected on his iPad. And so it's basically establishing Wi-Fi throughout the courthouse, except in unauthorized areas. And in our courthouse, unauthorized areas would be the probation on the first floor and the ground floor. They're not included in AOC's network. So the, again, very similar process. If we agree, AOC will, through a third-party contractor, have all the cable and wiring pulled through the courtroom, or through the courthouse, excuse me, making it wireless. The estimated cost that they had given us was $32,900. IT Director Chris Pereira had a few questions and just got back some information today, which indicated that the cost may go up a little bit, somewhere in the neighborhood of $3,000 to $5,000, because of our courthouse is old, it's got a lot of concrete walls, a lot of drilling and running wiring is gonna have to be done, and so this price that they're giving us will be proposed to be increased a little bit. So basically, where it says $32,900 on your agenda item, we're asking to bump that up to $37,900. This third party will do all the cable and wiring. AOC will pay them directly, and then AOC will bill us for that amount if you so agree to reimburse them.
Well, I did see in there the request would be funded through contingency. And I did see too where they stated additional charges, but they didn't have that figure you just quoted. So from contingency, we're okay with covering?
We are okay. That would leave a balance of about $24,500 in undesignated contingency if you approve the $37,900 request.
Comments?
Any questions for Ms. Barker? If you need any more details?
Good evening.
We want to get you wired. Sheriff, we want to get you wired.
We are eventually expanding to e-courts is coming down the line, paperless filing. And so in order to prepare for that, this is coming about. And I spoke with the Perquimans County Clerk this morning. They are going live tonight. They've got his building, and he has, the Perquimans County Courthouse is an early 1800 building. They will be celebrating their 200th anniversary, and it's the oldest courthouse to be conducting court right now in the state of North Carolina. So we're not quite that old, but we've having gone through a renovation in 2010, 11, and 12, and having lived through that, we have a lot of old brick, a lot of old empty spaces, and because of what's coming up, we're going to need this wireless. It will make our lives a lot easier. The local bar will be able to tap into that as well, and so we would appreciate your funding that. It's a little higher than we expected, but they have already done the survey and they know where they've got to place certain things and equipment. So we have that already. That's been presented as well.
Thank you very much. Thank y'all. I have no others. Anyone else have questions?
Chairman and Commissioners, I've reviewed the agreement and have no concerns. I think it's ready for your approval if you see fit.
Yeah, it's unbudgeted, but it does come from contingency, so we can cover it. Won't be a problem. What's the pleasure of the board?
Make a motion to approve the waiver project.
Have a motion on the floor for approval. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. Motion carried.
Thank you.
Thank y'all. As for Chairman's report, I have no additional comments. Manager Kathy?
A couple of quick things. Commissioner Thomas and I have been working through his orientation process over the last month. So we've been out visiting all of our departments, and we'll finish that up next week, and as well as attend the Essentials of County Government course. So that will wrap up his orientation period on the board. So I've enjoyed getting to know you and welcoming you to service on the board. I'd like to thank y'all for your service in all of our various boards and committees, as well as the members of the public who have volunteered for those roles. Those are very important in doing the work of the county and in having just a variety of people involved in all the different areas that these boards focus on. So I just want to thank you for those efforts and also emphasize the importance of everyone being there for the meetings and making the time for those. And sometimes we struggle to have a quorum, so being able to conduct the business is very important for those committees. So that goes for all the members of those committees. And again, thank you for your service on that. I would like to recognize Emergency Services Director Tom Schwallenberg, just to make an announcement or share a few comments to round out the manager's report this evening.
Good evening again, Commissioners. Good evening. I don't know if this is good that I'm at the beginning and the end, so. What I wanted to talk about was the weather event that we had over Christmas weekend. So the weekend of December 23rd, Person County experienced dangerously frigid temperatures as part of an Arctic cold front that impacted the entire nation. Nighttime temperatures dropped into the single digits as a storm front moved through the area, which was further impacted by high winds, causing power disruptions due to downed trees and power lines. Prior to the storm moving in, staff from Person County and the city of Roxborough met and developed a plan to open 2 warming centers for our citizens if needed. Plan was to open 2 warming centers that would stay open for 36 hours during the coldest parts of the storm and then be reevaluated based on citizen need. A message was sent out to our first responder community to see if they had capacity to open their buildings as warming centers. Roxborough, Person County Rescue Squad, and Hurdle Mills Volunteer Fire Department answered the call and agreed to open their buildings and staff them over the cold holiday weekend. Cepho Volunteer Fire Department brought hot food to the 2 warming centers in case citizens needed a meal. The reason for presenting tonight is I feel like that only tells part of the story. Other volunteer fire departments did offer to open their buildings if the power outages lasted longer than anticipated and citizens needed refuge. 2 individuals did come to the warming center at Roxborough Person County Rescue Squad that needed additional assistance besides a warming center. One person heated their home by a kerosene heater and had run out of kerosene and did not have the means to purchase more. A member of the Person County Emergency Medical Services went and purchased a container and filled it with kerosene for the individual so they would be able to heat their home for the night. This person, having expended all of their kerosene, showed up the next night, and a member of the Person County Rescue Squad paid to put them up in a hotel for the night. Another individual that is homeless showed up at Roxborough Fire Station number 2 on that Friday, looking for shelter from the cold. The captain at that station and his crew assessed the situation and decided to pay to put him up at a local hotel for the night. On the way to the hotel, they stopped and bought him a hot meal. A member of Person County Emergency Services then voluntarily covered the cost for his hotel room on Saturday and Sunday so that he didn't have to go out into the cold and purchase food and other provisions for the individual. On Christmas Day, they took him a hot meal, spent some time with him so he would not be alone on Christmas. They even allowed him to use their cellular phone so he could contact his family in California and let them know that he was safe. Then, a member of Roxborough Person County Rescue Squad stepped up and paid for an additional 3 nights for this individual to stay at a hotel, while behind the scenes, emergency services worked to identify services for this homeless individual. Eventually, the gentleman was linked together with Freedom House, Person County Social Services, and the mobile crisis team to address his needs to the best of their abilities. Mother Teresa said, "None of us, including me, ever do great things, but we can do small things with great love, and together we can do something wonderful." This past Christmas weekend, we saw people come together for those that are less fortunate. What I think is telling here is that many of these were public safety first responders stepping into care for their community, as that is what they are called to do. These individuals are not looking to be recognized by name, but Ms. Kathy and I felt that it was important tonight to tell you their story. So thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tom, and thank you for all the work you did over the holidays and your staff and all of our volunteers. And I think that is an excellent example of how our community comes together to support those in need. Thank you again.
Very good, very good. Anything else?
Yeah, that's it.
Commissioner Sims?
I just have a couple things I want to, question that maybe we can look at next meeting or whatever, but I've had a couple of times citizens question me about how we're doing with broadband, what's the situation with that? And I know that we had a company that, I think we're waiting on the state, if I'm not mistaken, or something.
We are, and that's still going through the legal process at the state for them to finalize the agreements that will then go to the provider. They are creating a template for a two-part agreement and a three-part agreement. So eventually, we may be able to sign on to a three-part agreement between the county, the provider, and the state. But we are still waiting on the state to finalize those agreements before we can move forward. And everybody is in that same, all counties, all providers are still waiting on that.
Okay. And the other one be zoning and planning, and I know that permits, as far as how we're doing with the permitting
Okay.
process.
We can do an update on that.
Are we ahead, behind with that? And, you know, if we are behind, how far are we? But I'd like to check those out if we could.
Sure.
Thank you.
Okay.
Commissioner Palmer?
I'm happy, I'm satisfied, great meeting, I have no report.
You're sleepy. Commissioner Thomas?
I would just like to thank our county manager for taking the time out and helping me and guiding me along this process. Learned a lot, and I challenge all of you to go out to the recycling center, let Amanda walk you through and go over the plan and see it for yourself. I think, PI is an important asset to this county.
Absolutely.
Commissioner Perrier?
Just to follow up on what Commissioner Sims said, just to, like an update on the inspections process and,
Okay.
and whether we're behind or on point.
Sure.
Thank you.
Mhm.
I didn't tell him to say that.
Okay, that's fine.
It goes back to a request that we've been talking about quite a bit. But it's
Sure.
important, it's very important. All right, do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
A motion to adjourn, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned. Good night. Be careful.